the authenticity and inner child and core self, and so many layers to it. I think the biggest thing that really jumps out at me is like this core self is where our authentic self lies, even though maybe there's still some authenticity in the inner child.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually interesting because sometimes then I even think like the inner child maybe can even be more in tune with our emotions and more authentic.
And like what we really
right?
actually
Yeah, but
even if we choose like, oh, it's probably not the best.
yeah, but we'll keep it simple and just say, you know, the core self is where that true authenticity lies. And because the inner child can kind of get in the way and disrupt that core self. So if inner child continues to try to tell you that like it's not safe, don't do that, who do you think you are, trying to apply to that position, like, no, remember we've been learned that like we're not worthy enough, we're not good enough, like don't even set yourself up for that. Inner child, again, it's wanting to keep you safe, but it's preventing you from doing all these things that you want to maybe do, and like goals that you want to achieve, and taking risks, and just doing things differently. Inner child thrives on what's familiar. Core self probably wants to explore a little bit of like, this might be worth considering.
Yeah. And I wonder, I don't know, and I don't have the thought completely spelled out, but I wonder to what degree like we're like a part of the core self is about integrating ourselves, you know, and that our inner self is a part of ourselves. It's just not the part, and it's not the part that's in the driver's seat.
Yeah, definitely. I think the inner child, hopefully, once you get over the inner child's need just for like safety and survival without the context, but hopefully it can help in your authenticity where it helps reconnect you to like dreams and passions
those
that
aspirations
you
and things.
right? Where core self has experienced so much now to this point that it's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like in some ways that you might also be able to tap into some authenticity in the process of healing, you know, our inner child, or regulating it in some way, or, you know, or listening to it or tapping into it, because there might be some things there for you that maybe you've even left behind.
Yeah. And I keep going back to Inside Out. So if people haven't seen it, then they're probably tired of hearing about it. But it's amazing how much it resonates, because even thinking about, you know, your authentic self, when you develop who you grow to be, just the type of person you are. And for the second one, she's like emerging into teenage years, so very developmental phase, but she still has this like core self, and they literally symbolize that of like core self and who she is, and she's a good friend and a good daughter and all these things. But again, her parts, and for this sake we'll just say inner child, all these changes are occurring, and inner child's thriving for like, oh my God, we have to belong. It's a new group of friends. Like, do whatever you can to belong and feel safe and survive. But that comes at the risk of now she's acting outside of her authentic self and character. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us. Those innate needs to survive and belong are so pressing that it takes us outside of our authentic character. Like, whatever we need to do to just do that. But really holding that space of like, this core self, and this is who I am, and being able to operate in that.
One thought is, it made me think about like, is it possible that a part of the work also though is like the need for the desire, at least for belonging in and of itself, is not necessarily like a bad thing? And might there be a space where like we're acknowledging that this is what, you know, our inner child really wants, and like bringing that to the surface, and like that need or that desire in and of itself is not bad, and maybe it's great, maybe it's a good thing. And also the way that our inner child may be pushing us to do so moves us away from A, our authentic self, and B, what's maybe healthy and helpful.
Yeah. Definitely not a bad thing at all, right? Like that innate need that we have. Like we're wired to connect, so we need some sense of belonging. I think that takes us back to how both things can kind of be true, where it's like, I desire this sense of belonging. That's common. But how do I still try to get this sense of belonging, but also stay true to me? Yeah. And takes us back to these parts. And kind of like the movie, right? She really, hopefully this doesn't spoil it, but she really embodied the core self, all parts of like, I'm a good friend and I'm also selfish.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, I really want this sense of belonging, and I also want to be true to myself too. And so some people might really love me and my personality, and unfortunately some don't, but I don't have to like change who I am because of that sense of belonging. I just have to find more of my authentic group. And so trying to merge all those different aspects of what can be true.
And so in that way, like, you're not pushing down the parts, you're like pulling them to the surface. You're accepting both or multiple things can be true, even if they're like not good parts or bad parts. Like, we're not trying to throw them away.
Yeah. Right. All those parts served us.
Yeah, and so I think in that way, like, I think like accepting those parts may be really important, because how can we actually be accepted if we are not accepting all of who we are?
Yeah. And I tell clients, I'm like, we work so hard to bury these negative parts of ourselves, even some of our like story. But I feel, at least, we can't even get to the depths of our authentic self or the depths of our healing if you haven't even acknowledged these bad parts of self, because now you're not even fully aware of like what you're working with. All you're focused on are these positive things, but it's like, no, but I think we have to acknowledge this anger that you tried to bury for so long, because now you don't associate with it, but for some reason it still keeps showing its head in these small instances, which may be leading to some of these relationship issues that you're having, right? And so we need to know all depths of the parts of self and accept them for what they are. Right?
Thanks for tapping in to All Things Authentic. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. For full episodes, find All Things Authentic on your favorite podcast listening platform.